Biologists at the Conservancy of Southwest Florida say that they found this dead snake about 15 miles into the deep part of the Everglades, but believe that it means the ecosystem is fighting back against invasives.
Something in the Florida swamp is hunting the most feared invasive predator in America. The Burmese python swallows alligators and full-grown deer whole and empties entire ecosystems. And for years, nothing on this continent could touch it.
The Burmese python can weigh close to 200 pounds and reach over 20 feet long. No Everglades mammal is a match for its unending hunger.
Then the tracked pythons began vanishing. One by one, their signals still beeping from inside the belly of something nobody could name. No blood, no carcass, just a predator taking apex snakes off the map without leaving a trace. So researchers bolted cameras to the trees and waited, and what finally crawled into frame was not the monster anyone expected. The signals that went dark. Let me back you up, because you need to understand how strange this got. In 2021, Bartoshik and his team at the Conservancy of Southwest Florida were running what looks, on paper, like the most boring science there is. They put surgical radio transmitters into juvenile Burmese pythons and tracked the signals across the wetlands day after day, building a quiet map of where these snakes go. And for a while, that is all it was. Just numbers on a screen, dots drifting through the swamp. Then the signals started dying. Not the transmitters. Those kept pulsing, clean and steady, right on schedule. It was the pythons attached to them that were vanishing. The first snake they had tracked for 3 weeks. Perfect data, and then total stillness. Not the slow stillness of a cold snake, just gone. So they waded out through cypress roots and chest-high saw grass to the exact coordinates, and there was nothing. No carcass, no blood, no drag marks. Nothing disturbed at all. Just that faint electronic pulse, beeping up at them from inside something else's body. Something had swallowed their python whole, transmitter and all, and it was still out there. Then it happened again. And when they recovered the transmitter and finally x-rayed it, that is when they saw it, the python spine, curled and intact, sitting inside an unknown stomach. Around the same time, a larger python turned up dead, close to 13 feet long, its neck crushed, its body stuffed under brush. Something in these wetlands was killing apex predators and leaving almost nothing behind, right under a crew of experienced scientists. And not one of them had ever laid eyes on it. The invasion that won. Here is why that should have been impossible. To understand how insane it is for something to eat a python like that, you have to understand what these pythons had already done to everything around them. They do not belong here. They came from the other side of the planet. The exotic pet trade of the 1980s and 90s shipped in thousands of cheap striking baby snakes. And then those babies grew to 15, 18, 20 feet. And people did what people do. They panicked, drove out to a canal, and let them loose. Then Hurricane Andrew tore through in 1992 and pushed even more of them into the wild. They arrived with no natural enemies. Nothing here evolved to fear them, so they simply ate. And I need you to actually picture this, not just hear numbers roll past. In the worst hit stretches of the Everglades, raccoons fell by more than 99%. Opossums nearly as far. Bobcats close to 90%. Marsh rabbits and cottontails just gone from places they had lived for thousands of years. Then follow it up the chain. Adult white-tailed deer swallowed whole, alligators that outlived the dinosaurs turning up inside python stomachs, and the remains of 58 different bird species pulled out of these snakes. If you are still with me this deep in, watching the kind of story most channels never touch, take 1 second and subscribe. It is free, and it is the only reason this channel can keep digging into things like this. Because what came next is the part nobody saw coming. Nobody modeled, nobody wanted to believe. A wildlife ecologist at the University of Florida, more than 20 years on this fight, put the python population somewhere between tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. And they threw everything at it. Federal import bans, state bounty programs, detection dogs, thermal drones, environmental DNA sampling, removal contests pulling hunters in from across the country, even the Army Corps of Engineers. None of it moved the needle, not even a little, not for a single season. And one by one, the people who knew this ecosystem best started quietly saying the same thing. The pythons had won, and everyone who mattered had already made their peace with it. Then Bartoszek's transmitters started going dark, and the question stopped being whether the Everglades could be saved. It became something much stranger. What eats the thing that eats everything? Every answer wrong. Every guess they reached for fell apart in their hands, one after another. A big alligator was the obvious one. Except alligators crush and death roll. They leave wreckage behind, shattered bone, torn tissue, half-eaten remains dragged through the mud. These pythons had none of that. A Florida panther bites through skull and spine and leaves puncture wounds and claw marks. There were none. No tracks either, not a single print in the soft ground. A black bear is strong enough, sure, but nothing about a bear swallows a snake whole and intact and leaves the skeleton curled up inside. They went straight down the food chain, animal by animal, ruling each one out, and nothing fit. It was maddening. The evidence was lying right there in front of them, and it pointed at nothing they could name. So, they did the only thing left to do. They bolted trail cameras to trees at every single spot a signal had gone dark, and then they waited. Weeks of nothing but empty leaves and moving water. And then one morning, a researcher opened a clip, and the whole review room went silent. Caught on camera. You are braced for a monster here. So was everyone crowded around that screen. And what is actually on the footage is small. Just a thick, dark coil lying dead still in the leaf litter at the water's edge, matched so perfectly to the rot and shadow around it that you could stare straight at the frame for a full minute and never once find it. A juvenile python moves through, slow and unhurried, with no idea anything is there. Then the leaf litter explodes. The strike is too fast for the eye to catch. One frame the snake is hidden, the very next its jaws are already locked onto the python's tail. There is no chase. There is no struggle the python can win. The attacker simply begins to walk its own mouth down the body, jaw unhinging and stretching impossibly wide, taking the python an inch by inch while it is still twisting until there is nothing left but a slow bulge sliding away into the dark. You can watch it happen and still not fully believe your own eyes. It was a Florida cottonmouth, a native venomous pit viper, only 2.5 to 4 feet long, that had lived in these exact wetlands the entire time, through the whole invasion, through every field season. An animal every single person on that team had stepped right over on the trail 100 times without a second thought. It had been lying there under their boots all along, doing this all along, and not one of them had ever thought to look down. And if this little thing could take down the predator that emptied the entire Everglades, the question that hit them next was so much worse than the first one. How many other things out here were already doing it too? The perfect killer. Once you understand how a cottonmouth is actually built, it stops being a shock and starts feeling almost inevitable. 2.5 to 4 feet of pure heavy muscle, made for exactly this kind of drowned blackwater country. This was always their territory. The pythons just moved into it. And that famous open white mouth everyone pictures, the one that gives the snake its name, that is only the warning. The real weapon is the one you cannot see. Between the eyes and the nostrils sit pit organs that read infrared, raw body heat, with brutal precision. Darkness does not matter to it. Camouflage does not matter to it. A python, even a cold one, runs a hair warmer than the water around it. And that tiny difference is all the cottonmouth needs to find it in total black. There is nowhere in that swamp a warm body can hide from it. Then the venom does the rest, taking a young snake apart from the inside out. And one bite is the whole story before the python ever knows what happened. And here is the part that reframes the whole thing. These snakes were born to hunt other snakes. It is wired into them. Long before a Burmese python ever showed up in Florida, this was already what they did for a living. The python did not put them on some strange new diet. It just got added to a very old one. To a cottonmouth, a young python is just one more snake that wandered into the wrong swamp. But one lone viper in the leaf litter does not bend the curve on 100,000 pythons, and Bartoszek knew that. Which is exactly what made the next thing they found so hard to sit with. The cottonmouth was not working alone. The coalition. The transmitters had been telling a second story the entire time, and once the team went looking for it, it all came pouring out. American alligators had already killed several of the monitored pythons, one of the attackers just 9 feet long. The gators had never surrendered the Everglades at all. They had been fighting back this whole time, kill after quiet kill, and nobody had been there recording it. Then a trail camera caught something with almost no precedent anywhere in the scientific record. A bobcat walked straight up on a guarded python nest and went at it. Not scavenging, not stumbling onto abandoned eggs. It drove the guarding female back and then raided the clutch one egg at a time. It became among the first photographic evidence anyone had ever gotten of a native mammal hunting a Burmese python nest. And it did not stop there. Owls and hawks were filmed lifting juvenile pythons straight out of the open at dawn and dusk. Black bears took them. Panthers took them. All across the swamp, a whole coalition was quietly assembling, and nobody had organized a single piece of it. Nobody sent a memo. Nobody drew up a plan. Every one of them was just doing what a few million years of evolution built it to do, which is drive out the thing that does not belong. That is the force that was hiding in plain sight the entire time, bigger than any single python, bigger than the invasion itself. But here is the truth, and I am not going to soften it for you. It is not enough. Not yet. The math that doesn't favor us. One female python lays 12 to 36 eggs in a single clutch, sometimes more, and then coils around them, shivering her own body to keep them warm until they hatch. They mature fast, they live for decades. They breed faster than anything out there can eat them. The math is merciless, and it does not favor the home team. Not by a long way, and not yet. Human hunters have pulled more than 5,000 pythons out of the wild since the program began, and a recent contest weekend alone took nearly 200. It sounds like a lot until you remember these snakes are masters of vanishing, and most of this country cannot even be walked into. So every single strike counts now. Every cottonmouth in the leaves, every bobcat at a nest, every gator in the water is buying the Everglades a little more time. Time for these behaviors to spread, to get passed down, for the swamp to slowly remember how to defend itself. Because nobody authorized any of this. The cottonmouths did not wait for a permit. The bobcats did not read a recovery plan. While the agencies were still writing grants, the swamp had already started fighting back, and those cameras are the only proof we have that it is happening at all. What they still cannot tell us is whether it is happening fast enough. And somewhere out in the black water tonight, a cottonmouth is digesting a python whole, its transmitter still beeping in the dark, while less than a mile away, 100 eggs are getting ready to hatch. So, tell me in the comments, is the swamp fighting back fast enough to win, or are we just watching it lose more slowly? And if you want to be here when the next clip comes back from those cameras, because this is far from over, subscribe right now. This war is just getting started.